Thank you for joining us today on Paint a Beautiful Picture. My name is Violet Newby, and my guest today is Buffy Haney. Yay!
Hi, I'm so glad to be with you today.
I am really excited to have her with us. She's the mom of 5, and that's all I'm going to tell you. I'm going to let her tell you her own story. We don't have a script. I think y'all probably figured that out a long time ago. We're just going to have a conversation. As I always tell you, I'd really love to hear your comments or your questions. And at the end, I'll let you know where to get in touch with us. So let's get started. Buffy, you come from a pretty big family, right?
Yes, ma'am.
How many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have 5 brothers and 4 sisters.
Wow. Because I have 4 brothers and 5 sisters.
Okay.
Isn't that cool?
We're opposite.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And which number are you?
I'm number 7.
Okay.
Yes.
And
My mom had they had 1 girl, 5 boys, and then 4 girls. And I'm the beginning of those last 4 girls. So.
Okay. Wow. Either God or your mama. They're pretty smart.
Yes.
Keep them bunched up together.
Exactly.
Except maybe your big sister didn't feel that way with all that work, right?
She didn't. She felt very, very overwhelmed with all those brothers to raise.
I don't
to
have
be in front of.
doubt about that at all. And what was the most fun part about growing up in a big family?
I think just always having somebody to play with, especially with me having 3 younger sisters. And then just the older brothers were always there to protect us and, aggravate us.
Yeah. Do a brother's job.
Oh,
Drive
yes.
you nuts. I know about
It really
brothers.
was wonderful. I wouldn't trade it for
That's
anything
great.
in the world. So.
And what was the most challenging thing about growing up in a big family?
I guess it was just honestly, that's kind of a hard question because there was at times, I guess, just being heard. You always had to be loud to be heard over 9 other people.
So your house was loud?
Oh, yes. Very loud, but very fun.
I understand about loud. Quite a lot, actually. Oh, dear. And so did you feel like when you got ready to get married and have kids, okay, I know about families. I know about this.
Oh, yeah, especially because a lot of my older siblings had already, gotten married and had kids and all. So I just felt like I had it figured out. But I learned very quickly with my own that I did not. So it's a totally different situation when they're your own kids. So.
Yeah, it's all a big surprise, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
We think we know so much, and then...
And each individual one is a surprise because they're all so different.
Exactly.
With each of my 5, they all have their own personalities and, so.
How soon do you think you noticed things about their personality? When they were a couple months old?
Basically right off because they were all so different, yes.
Right.
My oldest was very, I guess, headstrong from the beginning. So, such a sweet child, but just always loud and getting into everything. And they were just all different.
Did she have hyperactivity disorder? Was she
No,
ADHD?
I don't think so. If she did, we never had her tested. But
Okay.
She may have.
She was just an active,
she was
rowdy
just a very
kid.
active, loud, singing all the time, climbing up on tables, from the time she was able to get around. So, yeah, she kept me on my toes.
Okay.
So.
And tell me a little bit. You have to tell me names or anything like that. Just tell me a little bit, like what gender and what ages your kids are. If you are comfortable with that.
You mean the age now? Or
yes.
Okay,
right now.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my oldest is 24, and then the next, she's a girl, and then my next one was a girl also, and she's 22. And then the third one was a girl, and she's 21. And then I have Grant. He's my son, so he is 19. And then my youngest is Laurie. She's a girl, and she's 16.
Okay. So in about 8 years, you had 5 children.
Oh, yes.
You were quite a busy lady.
Yes. Very busy.
And what do you think was the most challenging part about being a mom? And I mean that in a personal sense. Like, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but some people say, oh, I never have time to myself. I don't get to. Or what was the challenging part about all those children in your life?
That was the most challenging, I think, was you have to give up self when you have kids. And especially,
I think y'all have heard this before.
Especially when you have them close together, as close as my first 4 were. I had 4 within 5 years. Mm-hmm. So having that many that close together, you don't have time for yourself, especially when they're little. But it's so worth it. I would never go back and change the way I had my kids.
Yes.
Because they are, they play together. They have their own built-in friends, It's extremely difficult, as a mother to do that, but it's very rewarding also.
It is. It is. When do you think some of that pressure let off? Because I know you had Lori at the end, so that kind of threw that off. But, when did some of that?
Probably when the youngest one reached about 5.
Okay.
When Grant became about 5, and then Laurie, I had her almost 3 years later. So that wasn't quite as bad as the first, wasn't quite as hard as the first 4 because they were so close, and trying to find time for each one of those, it was challenging at times. But when Laurie came along, it felt like I got a breather, because she was 3 years, Grant was almost 3 years old. She was born in August and Grant turned 3 in September.
Okay.
So that felt like, oh, wow, this is easy,
Isn't that amazing?
She's easy,
And we get a little experience behind us.
Yes,
and
and
things get easier.
Savannah at that time, she was 7.5 when Laurie was born, and she was a big help to me, even with the younger ones, even and with Laurie. So the older ones, even though they were still young in a sense, they were help to me
Right.
with Grant
Things
and
like,
Laurie.
Mom, can I hold the baby? Or
Yes.
play with your brother, play with your sister kind
Exactly.
of thing. And it was all right.
Entertain them,
Right.
yes. And it worked. I mean, I was always there to supervise, but they did help me
Yes.
a lot.
I think a lot of times people who have, we'll say 2 children, I've even counseled people with 3, and they'd say, I'd really like to have one more, but I don't think I can handle it. Okay, I know what I say about that, but what would you say about that?
I would say God gives you the ability to handle it. Sometimes when you think you can't, you can handle more than you think you can.
That's really a good answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other answer I frequently give people is, now you've got more experience.
Mhm.
And oftentimes adding one more, though it feels like it would be so much work as the first one, in reality, it's not the truth. Because now that you have others around that can kind of work with you, I mean, a 5-year-old, literally, you can say, will you go grab me this off the kitchen counter? Or will
Exactly.
you just sit down right here and play with your brother for 5 minutes and I'll be finished? Yeah, I think oftentimes people forget that interactional dynamic within the family, that it's not
Yes.
just you all by yourself like it was with that first one.
Yes.
It's all right. It's a whole different story. So I'm really happy that you mentioned that, because I think it is the truth. So I think sometimes people stop the blessings because,
Yes.
kids are,
They
they're
think
like
they aren't
so
able
amazing.
to,
Right.
but you can.
Right.
I know I've heard people tell me, this first one's, hard. The second one's, you can handle 2. The third one's the one a lot of times that throws a loop because you only have 2 arms. So that third one, but after the third one, like you said, it wasn't hard to me. The third one did throw me for a loop, but after that, it was just like, okay, I've got this,
Yes.
so.
Right. I think I've seen that many, many times. And I know young couples, pretty young, like in their 30s, that have 8 and 9 children.
Mhm.
Because when I was in seminary with my former husband, some of these people really received solid teaching that you should have as many children as God gives you, because
Yes.
He's the one who knows how big your family needs to be. Some of the couples in our classes, they really received that word,
Mhm.
and I think that's awesome.
I think it is
And
too.
so I stay in touch, and I have communication with some people that have quite large families, especially in today's world.
Yes.
And so I think that people have a lot of ideas about what they can do or what they can manage,
Yes.
and they don't know. If God's going to give you that opportunity to have that big of a family, I really believe He's going to give you grace to take care of them.
I do too.
Mhm.
I believe that.
I think that's really good to hear from you. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. Again, this is not rehearsed, so you have to know if she looks a little surprised, it's really legit. I'm not going to scare you, but it is really an
Okay.
interesting question. About maybe 10 years ago, Ann Landers did this study, and she asked parents, if you could do it all again, what would you do differently? I cried when I read this study. Over 75% of people said, I would not have had children.
Wow. I would have, if I could do something over again, it would be to have more patience with my children.
I think what I learned from that study was parents really struggled to do a good job with their children. And because of their disappointments, they would have rather never have had those children at all. That's what I think I really learned. So your kids are old enough now. I'm sure you've experienced some disappointments. You don't have to talk about those stories or those specifics, but when those things happen, how do you handle them? As a parent of adult kids who get to make their own decisions. And
Hmm.
then you've got to live with them because you don't get to fix them or change them. They get to choose.
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
yes, they do. What do you do with that? How do you handle that part?
That has been something I have had to really struggle with because I have a hard time letting go. I love all of my kids. And so my husband and I have both talked about that being something that's so difficult. From the time they're born until the time they turn 18, you've been there to lead them, guide them, help them try to make good decisions when ultimately it still is in your hands until they turn 18. And
And
then when they turn
then,
18, you've got to learn how to let go and let them fly. And that has been one of the most challenging things for me as a mother,
hmm
honestly.
yeah, I always say the most difficult period of life is being the parent of a young adult.
Yes,
People,
I totally
they just look
agree.
at me so strangely, but it is the toughest part.
Yes.
However, when you've given them a really firm foundation, what does that do?
Well, you feel like that you've given them the tools that it takes to make the right decisions. You hope you have equipped them with what it takes to know how to make, good, sound, solid decisions and stuff that's going to, decisions that's going to benefit them
Yes,
in their life.
yes,
And if they choose to make a decision that maybe you wouldn't, you still have to step back and let them make decisions, even if it might be a mistake. Sometimes you learn from those. That's where it's difficult as a parent, is, when you're not sure if the decisions they're making is in their best interest, but you still have to let them make it. So, yes.
yeah, that's absolutely the truth. See, you really are a wise person. No,
Oh,
I knew that, Buffy. I
I'm
really,
not sure about that.
oh,
It's
I'm
just
pretty
stuff you
sure.
learn, like you said, in life
Hmm.
as you go along, and especially when you have children.
Right.
It's stuff that you learn as you go.
And that's my next question. I always say the thing that I did when I had kids was I grew up. What do you know?
Oh,
And I grew up
yes.
in many ways alongside of my children because of the things my parents didn't give to us. In what ways do you think that you learned or grew the most being a mom?
Well, I think, like you said, it's something you learn with them. I have learned so much just in raising my kids. They have taught me so much about being a mother and, being the support system they need just by being the children they are, and me learning from just the situations I've been in with them. I can honestly say I have learned right along with them too. Even though I had a wonderful foundation growing up, I grew up in an excellent. I couldn't have asked for a better situation growing up, a better family.
Yeah, I'm
And
so
so I'm
happy for
so
you about
glad. I
that.
was so blessed with that. But
Yeah.
even with that being said, you still have to learn yourself.
Mhm. And
You
what do you
know,
think you learned that was probably most important to you?
um, I guess just I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to think about
It's
that one for
okay.
a
It's
minute.
okay. That's absolutely
Okay.
fair. No problem.
Okay.
So, is it all right if I share with you what I think I learned the most?
Yes, please do.
Because I didn't have a great home life. And I hadn't ever seen patience or grace or even the freedom to make a mistake. I mean, you made the
Yes.
littlest mistake and somebody was on you and yelling and screaming at you or slapping you. Um, I think that I learned that it was really okay just to be human. I know that might sound funny, but to really give my kids grace and just the liberty to make a mistake or to do something stupid. Kids do stupid stuff
Exactly.
all day long.
Exactly.
Just, it's okay. And so I literally learned to say this, and Alyssa's heard me say this to my own self. Well, Violet, it's your turn to be human today. Where I used to be so hard on myself because everybody
Yes.
else all around me always was. And I learned not to do that to my kids. I didn't have to relentlessly go after, you know, buckle down on my kids. Like they could just be human. They could do
Yes.
crazy stuff. They could make a mistake. That was an invaluable lesson to me as a parent.
Well, I feel like that's one that I'm still learning. So, exactly
It's
what
a
you said.
challenging lesson.
Because I tend to be, I guess, more of a type A personality. And I know how I want my kids to be. But like you said, we're all human. And I think that is learning to step back and, like you said, give them grace and let them be who they are.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
that's tough for me sometimes.
I think it's tough for all of us.
Yes.
But that was a great lesson for me. It really was
Well, thank you
amazing.
for sharing that
Yeah,
because
you're
I needed
welcome.
to hear that today.
Okay, okay. Well, you guys know that I broke my arm. So here, this is now my arm with the mess it's in after the surgery. But you know what? Every single one of us falls down. That's the truth. Whether physically, psychologically, we can't quite get a hold of or cope with what's happening to us, even spiritually. Oh my goodness, there are times we do things and we're like, oh, I'm so ashamed and I'm such a failure. And we know we let God down and we let ourselves down and we let down the people who love us. And we have to remember this: God loves us when we fall. He's not freaking out. He's not even mad about that. As his little children, he knows we fall, and all he wants to do is help us up and hold us in his arms and tell us it's going to be okay. If we could just learn to be enough like God, that when our kids fall, or even our mate or our good friends, the people that we love, when they fall, because they are going to fall, it is going to happen, then instead of yelling at them and criticizing them and getting all mad about the fact that they did it, we pick them up and we hold them tenderly and we say, it's really okay. I love you. I'm right here with you. We're going to get through this. Everybody makes mistakes. I think it's so vital for us. First of all, for me, because I was like my hardest critic.
Hmm.
Oh, brother. I think maybe some of us type A people, we wrestle with this. I had to learn to get off my own back.
Yes.
You understand that?
Oh, yes.
And then I could actually extend grace to my kids and to other people in my world. And I became a much nicer person. I'm dead serious about
Oh,
this.
yes.
Okay.
I totally can get it. Yeah.
Yeah. Because we all need that level of grace. We all need that level of, I'm going to love you. You can mess up. I'm not going to give up on you. And you can mess up 1,000 times. I'm not going to give up on you. I think it's part of the beauty of being a mom. We understand that maybe at a different level, that we
Yes.
can go to the however manyth time and still love you. Now, we might get tired and we might get a little fed up because we really are human too. I mean, I know that about me. And yet, the better we get this lesson down, I think, the more beautiful we become as a human being and the better it makes our life and our family.
Yes.
So,
I totally agree with you. And it's taken me a lot of, when you have 5 kids as close as I did, it's stressful at times.
yeah, you're just trying to keep
Oh,
your
you want
head
to
above
pull your
water.
hair out sometimes. It's like, wow, give me a break here. But that is, I've learned that. And it's taken me years, I think, to learn, as my kids could probably tell you. Um, it's a process, of learning that, like you said, giving your kids grace, giving yourself grace, of just saying, step back from this and, you know, let your kids be kids sometimes. But then again, you can't always let them be wild and rambunctious and crazy all the time. You do have to have,
Right.
standards with them.
So how did you handle that? For me, I told my kids, go outdoors, you can scream. I don't care if your clothes get destroyed. I'm a big Goodwill shopper. Okay, I'd put on their cheap clothes that cost me a quarter. I
Yes.
couldn't care less. You just tear those things to shreds and we'll put them in the garbage when you're done. Literally, I
Yes.
did that with my kids sometimes. I let them have that much space to really be insane. But inside of this house, you are not going to act like a banshee.
Exactly.
That was my thing. So how did
Yes.
you deal with that?
Well, it was just, we live out in the country. That's where we raised our kids. So they were allowed to do that too. Go out, play, be kids. But yes, there were certain things, they came in, they had to sit at the table when we ate. There was certain things they had to do, which I think has made them be better people today,
Right.
just
Right.
by having certain criteria they had to meet as kids,
Yes,
you
because they
know.
find out in life
And they
there are
have to be
rules.
disciplined if, they didn't abide by them or they disobeyed or whatever. But, they knew. And so I think that's what helps, you know, kids be respectful,
Hmm.
is by
So
making them.
you said the word discipline. Talk to me about discipline. Now, I've said this before. You don't have to agree with everything that is said here. You know I spanked my kids. I'll never apologize to you for that. So just know that. And Buffy gets to tell me the truth. So, hey, just it's all right. So tell me about discipline at your house, how that
Well,
was
we
handled.
did use corporal punishment at times, but I've always heard spare the rod and spoil the child. We never did it in a way that was abusive to our children.
Hmm.
But we, you know, if they had to be spanked, it was because that was the last measure. And, you know, sometimes that's what got their attention the most.
Right.
I mean, if you give them one little hickory switch spanking, as my mom always said, it made them be respectful of you. That's not the only form of punishment. Like I said, that was the last resort. After, if they didn't obey or listen when we told them, you know, they would get set down in timeout or nose in a corner and those kind of things too. But
Okay.
honestly, if we did that one time, they pretty much knew to respect you as a mother, you
Okay.
know.
And with teenagers, what kind of measures of discipline did you
Oh, they
use?
had to be grounded. They would get to stay at home, or when the cell phones came along, that would get taken away. So, but to be honest with you, we've raised some pretty good kids. We've not had many issues at all out of our children. We have been very blessed with all of our kids. But
Okay.
I do think it comes from teaching them from an early age what you expect out of them. And if you teach them that young, it follows them even through the teenage and adult years.
Right. So frequently on my channel, I talk about the principles of life, and then you lay this foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Once you really do that, those kids know where they stand.
They
They
do.
know where you stand. They know what's expected. It really does kind of make life easy. So whether you intentionally meant to or not, you mentioned a foundation. Can you
Yes.
tell me some foundational things that you felt like were important for your child's life?
Well, to me, I think it's just from the time they're an infant, teaching them that you, the parent, are the one in charge. You know, you are the one that they answer to, and they are the ones that they should respect you as parents. And I honestly think that is what has helped me and my husband the most, is just them knowing that from the time they're babies, you know. And like I was saying, it follows them through life. Yes, there's been instances that, yeah, we've had to do more punishment, like I was saying, but overall, I really think that's the secret, is teaching them to respect. Respect is what it all boils down to. Is if you can teach your children to respect you, then all the other stuff falls in place.
That's great. I think that's really, really good. Now I'm going to ask you a question that a lot of parents kind of look at me strangely. Just warn you ahead of time. In my relationship with my kids, because there was no respect anywhere in the house where I grew up, I didn't just expect my kids to respect me, I respected them. So a lot of parents, they go through their kids' stuff in their bedrooms, and I didn't even step foot in my kids' rooms without their permission. I was really respectful of them. Tell me what you think about that.
I think that's a good idea. I did go in my kids' rooms, but I did not go through their personal things. I never have done that. And if I were to, I would always tell them beforehand what I was going to do, because I think it's very important to always be open and honest with your kids. Don't do anything sneaky. You don't want your kids doing anything sneaky behind your back, so don't do things sneaky behind their backs either.
Absolutely.
Honesty is a huge thing with our family, is being open and honest. So, and I stand by that rule. I think that's very important, to be truthful in
Yes.
everything that you do. So,
These guys already know, if they've watched me at all, that is my number one. Oh, don't lie to me.
yes,
I will
don't.
hurt you. I cannot
I
abide it.
can't either. I can't
Oh,
take it. So
man.
I don't want to be that way with my kids. I'm
Right.
not going to do something
Right.
behind their back that I wouldn't tell them beforehand that I was going to do.
Right.
So,
The reason this really got lodged in my thinking when my kids were younger is because I watched a lot of people demand stuff out of their kids, but they didn't give it back. And every human being is worthy of respect, just by
yes,
virtue of breathing, because of life.
yes,
You know, God created us in His image. Anyone created in the image of God is worthy of respect. Now,
yes,
I don't mean that I was going to obey them. Don't mix up respect and obedience. They
yeah,
aren't the same.
no,
And I, in fact, was given authority by God as a parent, and I exercised it. But I'm talking innate respect of one human being to another human being. And I really started extending that respect to my kids. What's really been great, I think, for my life is now that my kids are, well, now they're 47 and 48, but when they became young adults and when they were adults, I really respected them at the same level that I wanted them to respect me. And really, my sons are two of my best friends on the planet, because we
yes,
have such a mutually respectful relationship. And I think tragically, a lot of parents, they lose their kids as adults because they didn't have that kind of respectful relationship, and it was all demands, and the parent has a hard time making that leap, looking at this human being.
Yes.
It's not my child. I don't need to be your mommy and hold your hand crossing the street anymore. You can live life, and I respect that you can make decisions, which probably are quite a bit different than some of mine.
Yes.
But I can respect that you make those decisions, and we're still going to love each other. And for me, that has been like one of the best blessings of being a parent and learning how to extend that respect to my kids.
It's that transition from being the mother to being able to let go, like we were talking earlier,
Yes.
when they become an adult.
Yes.
You
And
know,
that's quite a letting go thing, isn't it?
it's a hard
Wow.
transition.
Right. I agree
But
with you.
it can
And
be
you're
a
still in
beautiful,
it.
it can be a beautiful thing though,
It
because
is.
I love the relationship that I now have with my older children. You know, now they're older. And even with Laurie, she's 16. But you know, I treasure the relationship I get to have with my three older, the ones that are, you know, considered adults.
Yes.
With all of my kids, I think we've done that well, you know, as far as transitioning from the child to the young adults.
Yes.
So
yeah, and it's a great phase of
yes,
life.
it is. It's
It freaks out a
wonderful.
lot of parents. But
Well, it freaked me out for a little while. Believe you me, when my first one came along, I was like, okay, how do I do this? You know, how do I let go? You know, and not be that mom that's supposed to be, you know, making all their decisions.
yes.
So,
Yes,
but
exactly.
you know, with God's grace, I was able to learn to do that. So
Good. Good. All right, we're going to take a break a minute and we'll be right back. It's been really good having you with us so far, and we're going to kind of change gears after the break. So we'll be right back. Now, I already shared with Buffy at the very beginning, if she isn't comfortable, she can tell me no, and I'm not going to edit it out. So I just want you to understand. I realize that you've been in a fostering situation. We're not going to divulge any information, no names preferably, okay? Because confidentiality is huge with fostering. But how is that different for you than raising your own children?
I guess because I didn't get them from birth, and so not really knowing their story beforehand it's been hard for me to try to figure out, you know, each child's personality, you know, what they need, where they've been. And I know that I won't know all of that, but it's just trying to factor all that in, plus give these children what they need.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what kind of challenge? You say you don't really know them completely yet, or you don't know the backstory enough to get to them. What kind of challenges are they giving you? Where your kids were pretty cooperative, your own kids had this foundation, but the foster children, they didn't get that. So where's the challenge for you?
Well, with the oldest one, who is 12, she's very quiet. And so it's hard to get her to engage in conversation with me.
Mm-hmm.
She's very sweet. We're very comfortable with each other. But I think that's where I struggle the most is I'm used to my kids being real open with me, you know, talking, never wondering what they're thinking. And so that's where I struggle with her is, am I giving her what she needs?
Okay.
With the other two, they're younger. They're very vocal. Not so much of an issue there. But you know, it's just a challenge in that way that it's different that I didn't have them from birth. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to learn who they are as a person.
Right. And the middle one kind of pushes the limits, and that one's
Oh
quite
yes,
a
the
challenge for you in
6-year-old is
other
quite a
ways.
challenge. He
Woo-wee.
has a lot of personality. He has his own way, and he wants his own way, which is typical for most 6-year-olds, I think.
Absolutely.
You know,
they're really exerting their independence. They're
yes,
finding out they're an individual, and honey, they're going to push
he's
that.
testing my limits to see how far he can go with me all the time. And then he turns around and he's just the sweetest little thing. So he knows how to work you.
And since now you're a pretty experienced parent, because you are,
Yes.
you've been raising kids for 20 plus years. How do you think that is helping you out, especially with him being who he is, his personality?
I think it's helping me to learn how to take a step back and take a deep breath and regroup and to have more patience with him.
Okay.
That's what I think all my years of parenting has taught me, is to have more patience with these kids and, you know, let them be who they are, but then also set boundaries for them.
Mm-hmm.
Because our kids want boundaries, even when they act like the 6-year-old and the 2-year-old, because she's going to be a lot like him, I think. But it's teaching them boundaries, that yes, you can be your own person, but there's certain things you can't go past.
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
teaching them that, which is challenging.
It's challenging teaching that to your own
Oh,
kids, much
yes.
less to someone else's child that you really
Yes.
love and you care about. I
Oh,
mean, you
yes.
welcoming that person into your home. You're literally incorporating them, even if it's a short while in some fostering places, but to give them a place that's safe and secure.
Oh,
But if
yes.
they haven't been in a safe and secure place before, that doesn't feel very right to them yet.
No, it doesn't. And so they're having to learn about all that.
Hmm.
But they're doing really well. And it's been such a learning experience for us and them, I
Hmm.
think.
And how long have you had
And
them?
it'll be a year in June.
Okay.
So
And
11 months now we've
because I
had them.
really think a lot of foster parents will watch this in time, I want you to tell me about in the first few months. What kind of frustrations or what kind of feelings did you go through? And again, you don't have to answer me. You can say, I don't want to talk about that. But just if you're comfortable with it, what did you go through?
I think we went through all the feelings, emotionally, mentally, physically. Um, Times of not knowing what to do at all. It can be overwhelming at times. And I think each person in our family went through. It's hard. It's something we wanted to do, but then it's hard on your family because we still had three living at home whenever we, got these children.
Hmm.
And so it's been hard in a sense to learn how to settle that into our family. I don't know if that's the right word, but
Hmm.
to have all this mesh together,
Right.
it's difficult at times.
In the beginning, it probably caused a lot of upheaval. You
Yes.
thought they would just come in and it'd just be a couple kids and
Yes.
okay, except no.
No. It takes a period of time for that to settle in and become familiar. You have to get a routine. The children have to get a routine. Our family has had to learn how to get a routine. But now that we have, it's a wonderful thing. And I think our family has settled into it. But I'll be honest with you, the first few months were hard because it's sort of like when you have a sleepover and you have kids come over and they sleep over for one night. Well, this is a sleepover that keeps on sleeping over.
That's a good illustration.
so, so you know how it can be. Sleepovers are upheaval. It's something different. It's not the same. So when you have that come in and it's there 24/7 and it's not going away, you have to learn how to incorporate that into your life, and it's a learning experience. But I think our family, yeah, we made mistakes. We continue to make mistakes, with it. But I think overall we've done well with settling into it. And it's something that I've said. Each child, they deal with it differently.
Hmm.
Each one of my own biological children have had to deal with each of these three new children differently. Same to be said for our foster children. They've had to learn how to deal with each of my children in their own way.
Yes.
So that you've got all of these different personalities that have to learn how to get along.
Yeah. And
And
each one of those is a new relationship.
yes,
That's a lot of complex new
yes.
relationships happening.
And it was something I never realized. And you really can't until you experience it.
Hmm.
People
Hmm.
can tell you that, but until you actually live it, then that's when you're like, oh, this is what they were talking about.
Yes.
It
Yes.
really sets in.
Hmm. Let me
So,
talk to these foster parents just for a minute.
okay.
I've talked to you before, and I really want to acknowledge to you, I'm so proud of you. Like, I really honor you as a human being for being generous enough to allow someone else to come into your home and really bring on all that chaos and upheaval because of love and because of concern, because you really believe that you might give them a home and a place of safety and some sense of direction. And I know it's interesting that Buffy uses the language about this long sleepover. I think that foster children often feel that too. They're just going to come in and they're going to be here a night or two and they're going to get yanked out to a new place. And we all know that that, in fact, does happen occasionally. Or they might be there for 3 to 6 months and things get stabilized and they come and they pull them out of that home for whatever reasons. And I admit sometimes I don't agree or like those decisions, but it definitely happens. But every single day that they are there, you give them all the love that you can and you support them and you give them care and concern. And it really will make an impact. I think sometimes even 3 to 5 days can make a huge impact in a kid's life. if you really love them and you give them a place that's safe. So I want you to know that even a mom with a lot of experience recognizes the challenge or the frustration of what it takes to be a good foster parent. And so I'm here to say to you that you need support and you need encouragement. I'll be glad to do that. Write me, email me, whatever, contact me. But also make sure that you avail yourself of all the kinds of support that are available to you as a fostering parent. Thanks for that too, Buffy.
Yes.
Okay, now, you have anything you want to ask me about?
Um, I guess what advice could you give me as a foster parent going forward in this?
Mm-hmm.
To be what these children need me to be.
Right. The difficulty is you cannot replace their own parents. And some foster parents try that really hard. Well, I'm going to be a better mother than. That's replacement language. That's not going to happen. I mean, it's not healthy for the adult or the child. So you can't be the replacement mom. That's not who you are. They have a mom already. But what you can be is you can be a very stable, responsible, loving adult. That's who you can
Yes.
be. And you let them know that right away. I always say, as soon as a kid gets into a foster home, if it's possible, the family should sit down and the parents should say to them, I don't know what happened to you before. I really don't. I'm not going to presume, no matter what anyone else said, I don't personally know what happened to you before. If you would like to share that with me sometime, I would love to listen. But no matter what happened before, here at my house, you are safe.
Yes.
I will protect you. I will provide everything you need. You will have things to eat. You'll have a safe bed to sleep in. You will have clothes to wear. You will have people who love you. And I will love you no matter what you do, no matter how badly you act, because lots and lots of foster kids act badly. They've been through so much stuff. They don't even know how to talk about it, but it's going to come out. And it's going to come out in behavior and often negative behavior.
Yes.
And so when you express to them, it doesn't matter about that. It matters about you. And you are valuable. You are so important that I'm going to welcome you into my home. And I am going to take care of you and provide for you and love you. Once they have that, then they're going to find out if you mean it.
Yes.
That's where I always say kids need love the most when they act the worst. And frankly, all humans are like that, but it's very true in kids because they can really do some stuff. And so when they do these terrible things, as I've said many times before, half of the coin of love is affection. But the other half of the coin of love is discipline,
Mm-hmm.
setting those boundaries that you talked about. And so what you say to them is, I love you, I care about you. Some kids who have been sexually molested or sexually abused, you can't even hardly hug them. So you might just be able to gently put your hand on their arm for a second. Even if they flinch and back away, don't push anything with them because you
Yes.
don't know what they went through.
Exactly.
And yet you just make a second's worth of physical contact that is not threatening to them and let them know that you're right here with them. With some foster kids, when you finally get them to light and they sit down on something, no matter what you're doing, stop doing it. Go sit with them for just a few minutes in their space, not in their face, but
Yes.
in their space. And give them lots and lots and lots of opportunities. And then when they act really badly, you do discipline them. But you
Mm-hmm.
cannot physically discipline a
Oh,
foster
no.
child.
Mm-mm.
There are reasons for that. And I fully support all those reasons.
I do too.
Because they've already had enough stuff. They don't know you. That's not appropriate. But you can sure put them on the couch or put them into timeout or take privileges away from them. They can understand if you're going to act this way, this is the kind of discipline you can expect out of me. When you can start to cooperate here within our family's parameters, then you're going to get to have all of the rewards of being part of this
Exactly.
family. And so you're starting to establish some foundation for them too.
Mm-hmm.
And you're helping them understand trust because they probably have not had a lot. So you have to always, this is hard because we're not consistent always as parents, but you have to always do what you say with the foster child. So you don't say, we're going to go get ice cream on, tomorrow after school. And then you go, oh, I totally forgot about it. And we'll do another time. You can do that with your own kids. You can't do that with the foster child. You have to do what you say because all these other people didn't. And they need to see that level of reliability out of an adult
Mm-hmm.
so they know they can trust you. And when months have gone by, It's usually that. And that's the difficulty with the in and out syndrome with some foster kids. When months have gone by and they've seen you be consistent and they've seen you keep your word and they've seen your kindness, then they're possibly, but not always, going to start opening up to you because finally I got my hands on someone I can trust.
Yes.
So that's a very big thing. If over time they still can't trust you, like you talk about your oldest, um, you try to help them develop a relationship somewhere with somebody they can trust. With our own kids or with adults, a counselor will usually work. Often with a foster child, it doesn't really work.
Mm-hmm.
It's real frustrating even for caseworkers. They're trying to get to the truth of what happened, what very obviously impacted the child, because you can see the results, but you don't actually know what happened. They're not going to go once a week and talk to somebody. They're usually not going to spill their guts. It's just not going to happen. So, in your family, the great blessing for you is you have a number of sisters. If she kind of has an affinity toward a favorite aunt, or you have older daughters, if she has an affinity to one of your daughters, you can literally pull that person aside and say, I'm really having difficulty getting through to, and I'd really appreciate it since she seems to really like you and be comfortable around you. If you would make a commitment
Mm-hmm.
to spend, we'll say, a day a week. I don't mean an hour. I mean like an afternoon where y'all go to the park or you go shopping at the mall or you go rollerblading. I don't care what. Something that she would really like to do. And in that developing of that relationship, not inside of your home, but with someone kind of around the periphery of your home that you trust, that person she might actually be able to open up to.
Yes.
Because you want them to have the opportunity to get that stuff out of them.
That's wonderful advice.
Yeah. You don't
So,
want it stuck in there festering and hurting them any
no.
more than necessary. So you give them the opportunity, again, in a very safe environment with a solid, dependable person that maybe they're going to be able to talk to about that. So that's probably one of the big keys I would give you that would help. And the same thing is true. Even though your middle one is, pretty gabby and willing to tell you things, and you have to know that I've met these kids, so this is why I'm saying this. Uh, again, with somebody, an uncle, or I'm not sure that Grant's quite ready for this, but I don't know. I don't know Grant so
He's
well.
coming around.
Okay.
These kids have been really good for him. But yeah.
Again, the same thing with your middle one. You might also want to give him an opportunity to develop that sort of relationship outside of the immediate family.
Mm-hmm.
Where once he develops a certain level of relationship, especially if it seems as though they're going to be with you longer term, then that allows him to have a different outlet where also he can express some of his emotional stuff. He may not have gone through the
Yes.
same things as his sister, but he's been through some things too. And so he's definitely acting some of that out. That's pretty apparent when he has that relationship where he can talk about that. He may not be ready to talk about it for a few years, truthfully.
Yes.
And yet it is the very development of that very stable relationship that gives him the place where that could happen.
And I do think that's probably why he does act out sometimes. That's the only way he knows to express himself.
Exactly. And even as adults, you'll see adults, they're not good at expressing their emotional state or dealing with what's happening. And so they act real ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
You want to slap them like you're 30 years old. Do you not know better than this? But really, maybe they don't.
They may not.
Maybe nobody's ever helped them enough to process things that happen to them or even things that are happening to them now. And so the more tools, I love that you use that word because it is the right one. The more tools that we give our kids, including foster kids, to cope with life and to understand that the development of a significant relationship where I can feel safe and express myself is key.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how many adults don't even know that yet.
I know. Yes.
And so, yeah, allowing a child to have that is a really good thing.
It is.
Mm-hmm. And
And sometimes it's not always easy to teach that,
It's really
And
not.
I guess that's one of the challenges I have with the older foster child is it's hard for me sometimes to, it was easier for me with my own kids to say, you need to do this and this, It's harder when that child is not yours. And I think that's where I struggle even giving her little chores or something around the house, I do that some, but it's just harder when
Oh,
it's not your own
I'm really glad you
child.
brought that up.
So,
It's very important. If all of your own children have a responsibility and your foster children don't really, they're not part of the family yet.
mhm.
And they know it. They're smart enough to figure that out. So don't even think for a minute that you're making a mistake. You give her a daily responsibility just like everybody else in the house
Yes.
has one or more. Then she might grouse about it. I mean, this is
Yeah.
what kids do. Hello, are you kidding me? Yeah, you can expect that. That's normal stuff. And yet, then she's actually going to know, oh, I really am a part of this family.
Exactly.
Everybody else has to do something, and so do I. And frankly, the middle one's plenty old enough too. He's got
Mhm.
to have things he's got to do. Yeah, the more uh, regular treatment, just like you're part of all of the rest of us that you give them, really, the sooner they integrate into the family unit, the sooner they can really actually start to handle things.
Exactly. And that's where
Don't
I
hesitate
struggle. I
there.
do make them do some things, but I feel like that I tend to stand back a little bit. And
Yeah,
it's just this the mama part of me, I guess, because I think about what they've been through. And when really I need to push myself more to, yeah. And that's I'm planning to work on that.
okay,
Just like I
okay,
said, I make mistakes too, but I feel
right,
like that's something I need to work on as a foster mother to, you know, sometimes you think you're doing them a favor when you're really not.
right.
And I recognize that, but it's, you know, pushing through.
As you say, because of what they've
Yes.
been through, you kind of want
Yeah,
to
you want
nurture
to
them a little
protect
bit
them a little
more.
bit more,
Right.
but when really you're harming,
Yes.
and I know that,
But keeping them from just a regular life, that's not
yes.
protecting them at
No,
all.
it's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
So they've got to have
And I
chores
do.
and
I make her
expectations.
dust the house.
Okay.
That's her thing, and she has
Okay.
to help fold clothes.
Okay.
But with my other kids, they helped me so much around the house.
Mm-hmm.
It was required.
Right.
You help keep the house up. You put your stuff away, and
Give her more and more
yes,
responsibility, and she will start to feel more and more like part of this
yes.
family.
Thank
Just
you
so
for
you know
that.
that.
I need that shove.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yes, because it's a big thing. They
Yes.
need to feel a part long before they're ever going to divulge. And somewhere in there, if you're sitting there folding clothes together, she's going to go, "Hey, I remember when." And here's the big thing. You probably already know this as a mom, but you got to develop a poker face. I don't have
Oh
one of
yeah.
those, okay? You tell me something, I'm like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm terrible at poker.
Sometimes
But
they can really surprise you.
whoa, yes, they can. But you have to have that capacity so that
Yes.
she starts telling you things and you're just like, okay.
You've got to act like
Yeah.
it's just normal
Or
when it's not.
well, no, but that shock or that, yeah,
Yes.
that doesn't help them process. They've got to have this calm, in control adult because their life has been plenty out of control.
Mhm.
And they're finally going to talk to you about this element that was out of control. You got to have control right then. I don't care if you don't have it all the time. You better get it right that moment. So have this planted in your mind. To be
Okay.
effective, when that finally comes out, you've got to have control. You can't go, I can't believe that. I don't know what. And like you just can't do it. Not your face, not your mouth. And oftentimes the best response is nothing initially to be quiet back. Sometimes it's okay just to say, I'm really sad that you had to go through that.
Mhm.
And you might say that with tears in your eyes because you really are sad. And then you can say to them, I don't even know right now how to help you with that, but I'm going to learn
Mhm.
because it's the truth. You probably don't
Yes.
know. It's probably way out of your realm of experience. And as we've talked about before, this is where one of the best things you can do as a foster mom is get your hands on every class, every resource, every article, anything that the foster system is going to give you that's going to help you to be a more effective foster parent. Make use of that because they've done this tens of thousands of times. Maybe not great every time, but they do have all those resources available to you. Make sure that you're making use of them.
Yeah.
And so, even with regular parents, I say it on a constant basis, we will run into things we can't handle and we
Oh,
need to
most
get help.
definitely.
And so, you might run into things you can't handle. You might need to get help. And yet, you say to her, I really don't know how to handle this, but I do know how to love you.
Mhm.
I know how to do that. And you can put your arm around her. You can say, and I'm going to learn. And we are going to get through this. I'm not going to leave you. It isn't your fault. It's not that you did something bad and you deserve this. So many young kids, that's what they think. I was bad. They did this to me because I was bad. You're not a bad person. I'm going to be right here with you through all of this. I'm going to keep on loving you. I'm not going to send you away because of any of this. It depends on the kids. You might not need to say any of it, but you might need to say all of it at different
Yes.
times. But be prepared that when that day comes, you're going
Poker
to have a calm
face.
demeanor. You're not going to come out with, I can't even believe it. What a creep. And everything. Everything under control. As I always say, when a kid's life is out of control, they need an adult who is in control of themselves and in control of the situation. That's even more critical with a foster parent.
Yes. Wow.
But you understand that, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay, good girl.
I do understand that.
Okay, good. That helps.
Because they do. It's almost like as I deal with these kids and we go through different phases with them, even though the kids, whenever different changes come about, they may not know about it, but I think subconsciously they do. Because it's almost like the 6-year-old, he tends to act out more whenever he knows. He doesn't know because we haven't talked about things that may be going on with their case or whatever, but it's almost like he knows subconsciously. And I just find that, it's what they just sense with their bodies and all, even though they can't voice it. Like you said, it comes out in other ways sometimes.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I'm trying to recognize that and remember that. Even though I know what's going on, I think they can sense when something like a change is about to happen.
Right.
Even though I don't talk about anything in front of them that we're not ready to share, with the children, I try to keep it as low key as possible, to keep their lives
stable.
Stable. To
on
keep
an
their
even
lives
keel.
stable,
Yeah.
on an even keel. But it's just amazing to me how they can pick up on stuff you're not even aware of.
They know so much
They really
without ever
do.
hearing it.
They really do.
They just really know.
They're really sensitive to things.
I think foster kids especially.
I
They've
think
been
so,
through
too.
so much stuff.
Yes.
Their
yes.
radar is on full blast.
It
and they
is.
can kind of really pick up on things. You're going, how did they even know about that? Oh, yeah, that's definitely a fact. They really do. It's really been good having you with me.
I've really enjoyed it.
Awesome.
It's been awesome.
See, not so scary.
No, it's not.
For
Thank
some people,
you so
it
much
is.
for asking me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'm glad I said yes. So.
Good. Thank you, Buffy. I would like you to know it is no easy job being somebody's dad or somebody's mom. I have told you that before. And yet, as you hear when Buffy tells us, it's such a rewarding thing to be someone's parent. It really is a great joy. It's been excellent having you with us today for this Saturday session of Paint a Beautiful Picture. I really do welcome your comments, your questions, your dilemmas. Oh, Miss Violet, what in the world can I do about fill in the blank? You may send those to me at paintabeautifulpicture.com and I'll get back to you. You can also watch us on YouTube, Rumble, and listen to us on Spreaker. And I really hope that you will share this with your friends and your family members, anyone who you think would benefit by hearing about it. And I will look forward to having you with us again soon on Paint a Beautiful Picture. You may find additional information on our paintabeautifulpicture.com website. Additionally, you may watch me on Rumble, and you may also listen to a podcast on Buzzsprout or Spreaker, all under the name Paint a Beautiful Picture. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. You may subscribe, and if you are interested in receiving notifications, please hit the notifications button.